She had this bizarre fascination with Jeffrey Dahmer. She was obsessed with him and then went on to commit such a terrible, brutal murder that the media called her Lady Dahmer. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it for you guys. This is a horrific case and definitely not the video that you're going to want to eat during while watching. Taylor Schabusiness, that was her real legal name. Taylor Schabusiness was born Taylor Coronado and was raised in Green Bay, Wisconsin. From the outside, Taylor appeared to have a very normal, happy childhood and family, but throughout this entire case, that proves to not be so true. Sadly, Taylor's mother was an alcoholic, and it was really, really bad. Well, when Taylor was only 11 years old, her father woke up to discover that her mother had died in her sleep from cirrhosis due to her alcoholism. And after her mother's death, Taylor was really just in a downward spiral. Her dad remarried very fast, and Taylor was just very angry. She was rebelling, she was acting out and abusing alcohol and substances. She had a boyfriend in school named Shad Tyrion, who will be very important later in this case, and eventually Taylor was even expelled from high school because she was starting fights so often. By 19 years old, Taylor was in full-on addiction. She was using the substance M, like Beth with an M. Taylor actually married her M dealer, a man named Warren Chabot. And after she was married and went to change her last name, instead of taking her husband's last name and being Taylor Chabot, she legally changed her name to Taylor Schabusiness. Taylor Schabusiness. And as you can imagine, this marriage was extremely toxic and Taylor was just continuing down this downward spiral. In July of 2020, Taylor was arrested for resisting arrest and also battery of a police officer. Only a few weeks later, she was caught in a high-speed chase with police and refused to pull over and was arrested again. Taylor was in a really bad place, and to make matters even worse, she was pregnant at this time while still using M. At 23 years old, she gave birth to a baby boy. Her husband was unfortunately arrested for dealing and was in jail. Taylor really wanted to turn her life around for her baby, so she moved in with her dad and allegedly even got clean. But then three really, really bad things happened back to back in Taylor's life. First, she lost custody of her baby, and then she found out that her husband had been cheating on her before he went to jail. And then her own father was arrested for SAing a 13-year-old girl that was a relative of his wife, and he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Taylor Schabusiness was in a really bad, dark place, and she unfortunately relapsed and started using M again. She reconnected with her old high school boyfriend, Shad, who was also sadly using M at this time, so Taylor and Shad would use together and hook up. On February 22nd, 2002, Taylor and Shad were out partying and using with friends, and by all accounts, it was a normal, fun night. At some point, just Taylor and Shad went back to where Shad lived. He lived at home with his mom, and they kept using M and hooking up down in the basement. According to Taylor, Shad really liked it when she held him here on his neck while they were hooking up. Shad was wearing a chain, so she got on top of him and was pulling on the chain to restrict his breath until Shad was unconscious. Now, both of them were very, very much not sober. They had used a lot of substances that evening, not just M. So they were like using a combination, like a cocktail of really hard substances. Does that change anything? Does that excuse Taylor's actions, what she does next? I don't think so, but let me know your thoughts. So while Taylor is pulling on this chain that is around his neck, she said that it was really fun and cool to watch Shad's face turn colors. It went red, and then it went purple, and then it went blue. She kept pulling on the chain harder and harder. At one point, she said she watched Shad cough up blood, and then she said she could even feel his heart stop beating. And she actually said that this excited her, and she kept going and even pulled harder on the chain. And when Taylor realized that Shad was dead, that she just killed him, she wasn't upset, she wasn't freaking out, she had no remorse, no emotion. She actually SA'd his body after realizing he was dead for hours. She actually said that she was playing with his body. She then took a nap And then when she woke up, she decided she wanted to take Shad's body home with her. So she planned to cut him into pieces in the basement of his own mother's home. While his family slept, she snuck up upstairs into the kitchen and she grabbed sharp kitchen instruments. First, Taylor took Shad's head and she put his head in a bucket. And then she cut off his manhood and also put it in the bucket. And then Taylor took a second nap. And then when she woke up, she cut Shad in half long ways. And then began putting pieces of him into different bags and containers and boxes. And she was still using substances throughout this entire process because she ended up being in Shad's basement for over 24 hours. And she was actually hallucinating at one point and believed that Shad's arm kept regrowing. Like she would cut it off and then it would regrow, and it happened multiple times. And when Taylor finally decided that she was going to go home, she brought pieces of Shad with her, but she forgot the bucket that had Shad's head and manhood in it. So tragically, it was Shad's mother that found his head. She found her son's head in the basement of her own home. She told investigators that her son was in the basement with his ex-girlfriend from high school, Taylor Schabusiness. So officers went to her apartment and they found her minivan in the parking lot, and there was blood on the outside of the minivan. Taylor's clothes and hands were also covered in blood, but Taylor had a fresh, full face of makeup. So she gave herself a full beat after everything I just told you that she did to Shad. And in her minivan, they found a leg and a foot. At the station, Taylor did confess, and she had an extremely bizarre interrogation. She just did not act the way you would expect a person to act. Taylor also couldn't explain why she did what she did. She said that she liked killing him, that it was exciting, that the entire thing was actually really exciting, and to check her undergarments if you wanted to see how exciting it was and how excited it got her. Taylor Schabusiness's trial was watched by so many people because no one could believe that any of this was real. Taylor's defense was that she was not guilty by reason of insanity, that long-term substance abuse literally changed her brain. During her trial, Taylor was seen laughing, like a lot. Also, completely out of nowhere, she got up and attacked her lawyer. One of the most infamous parts about this entire trial was the inclusion of Taylor Schabusiness's obsession with serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. She would lay in bed and take selfies with a photo of him next to her. She also made multiple internet searches regarding Jeffrey Dahmer, like Jeffrey Dahmer's butt and Jeffrey Dahmer walking all sexy into court. And because of how brutal and horrific her murder was and her obsession with Jeffrey Dahmer, the media actually coined her Lady Dahmer. It took the jury 1 hour to come back with guilty of all charges, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And this has been slightly controversial. It was even a bit controversial that she was even deemed competent to stand trial in the first place, but let me know all of your thoughts. I'm extremely heartbroken for Shad and his family. No one deserves to die like that, and no mother should ever have to find her baby like that. So definitely let me know all your thoughts in the comments, but while you're there, please make sure that you're respectful, because you have no idea who could be in the comment section reading. Someone that knew and loved Shad could be there, so please just be respectful. And while you're there, please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. Thank you to everyone that suggested that I cover this case. Have you ever heard of Taylor Schabusiness? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys all next time in my next video. Please be a good person to your fellow person.